Now, Satan, bold now. Yeah, it's me. And I've been walking up and down, to and fro, and I've eaten up practically everybody. Has he got you? Has he got me? Has he got us? So look at what God said. Have you considered my servant Job? He ate up everybody. So God had one. One. Have you considered my servant Job? He said, oh, yeah, I considered him. Yeah, but you got that hedge around him. You know, and in other words, you like him so much, you put that hedge around him. But if you remove that hedge, I'll make him curse you to your face. See? So the God said, all right, that's a wager, we'll see. I'm going to remove the hedge. And all I ask you is don't kill him, spare his life. But you do unto him whatever you want. He won't curse me. And you look at what God allowed Satan to put on Job. Oh. See, you beloved Christians, you talk about what Satan did to Jesus. Jesus never broke one time. Don't care what they did to him. He remained faithful to the end. Think about that. Even on the cross, he understood so well that the people didn't understand the consequences of their actions. So he could say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now you, now me. See, you want to be a friend with the world. It's all right, but it's not if it makes you compromise who you are to be a friend. Listen. You love Jesus, but you don't want to suffer for him. See? You love Jesus, but you want him to have the cross, and you walk behind him and get a crown, but you don't want your cross. You love Jesus, but you want the favor of a world that hates him. You love Jesus, but you don't want to walk in his footsteps. See, Jesus wasn't asking people to worship him. That's a mistake that we make. Good master, the disciples said. He said, why callest thou me good? None good but the Father. See? He wanted the people to worship the Father, but he wanted the people to follow him. Follow him. Now, to follow Jesus Christ is easy to say, but hard to do. If any man would be my disciple, he must first deny himself. So many of us don't want to deny ourselves any pleasure for Christ's sake, any good for his sake. Peter had to stop fishing for fish. That's all he knew. He was a fisherman. And Jesus said, if you follow me, I'll make you a fisher of men. He had to get a new vocation and leave the old one out. Pimping, hustling, thieving, lying, cheating, all of that stuff, you got to give it up. And the worst hypocrites are those of us who, from the pulpit, do evil. preach against each other. You talk about your purpose is to unite the family of Christ. That's a big job. Because the preachers of Christ are in the pulpit preaching against another preacher. So you turn your flock against that flock. So when they meet each other, they're filled with enmity because the preachers can't get along. What's wrong with you that you can't get along? What's wrong with you that you can't thank God for your brother and his ministry if it is successful? Why must envy enter the heart and poison the bloodstream of the followers of Jesus Christ? See, Satan is the master. He's winning. They call me anti-Semitic, you know. And dear brother that represents the mayor, I want you to know that we were invited to his pre-inaugural dinner. Brother Ishmael went, Brother Leonard went, Sister Aisha and Brother Thomas. And I sent a letter to Mayor-elect Rahm Emanuel. I'm going to tell you the content of the letter. It may never see the light of day, but since his representative is here, I want you to know what I said. First, I prayed that that he would be in the best of health and spirit for the job that was ahead of him to do. I told him that, as you may know, the Nation of Islam under my leadership had a good working relationship with Mayor Daley and Superintendent Jody Weiss. And we adopted some of the worst parts of the city where gang life was prevalent. And we went into those parts of the city to lessen crime and violence. And we engaged the gang leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And Superintendent Weiss thanked us because wherever we went, the murder rate went down, the crime rate went down. I told him that you have accepted to be mayor in the most difficult time in our history, where there's not enough money to do all the things that need to be done. There's joblessness and homeless conditions, and the people are grossly dissatisfied. So I believe that you have the hardest job of any mayor that this city has ever had in the most difficult time. I said, but I want to offer you my hand and the hand of the Nation of Islam to help in whatever way we can to lessen crime and violence in this city. And I ask for nothing in return, but that this city be run well and peacefully. And I pray that God will give you the wisdom and the strength and the guidance to make your tenure of office successful. This is coming from a so-called anti-Semitic person. I don't hate Jewish people, but I do hate injustice and evil. Some of you don't read scripture well, and if you do read it, you're afraid to really preach it. But I call your attention to go back to the book of Revelations 2:9 and 3:9. When it talks about those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. I didn't write that. An anti-Semite did not write that. But let me tell you something about divine revelation when you get it. That's a privilege. But when God confers on you knowledge, that knowledge can either be used for the good of his will or for satisfaction of your own desires against his will. So those of us who receive divine revelation, that's a trial for you. And some Jews are very good. And there are others that use the wisdom and power that they have for wickedness. And you won't point it out because they pay you. They hate Farrakhan because I am pointing out the wicked ones and the wickedness that they do that is deceiving you and the government and the world. That's my job from God. And I will not shirk my duty to open your eyes to deceit and a deceiver. So I'm hated. Some of you will only meet me like Nicodemus met Jesus. Meet him round the back in the dark. But you don't want to be seen in the public with Farrakhan. He has spiritual AIDS. And we don't want to catch his disease. But let me tell you, if you're going to be for Jesus, if you're going to stand up for Jesus, then you got to stand up for righteousness. You got to stand up for truth, even if that truth is against yourself. Now I'm going to bring this to a close. I warn the wicked in the name of God. It doesn't make me feel good to tell America what's coming. But I'm going to tell you this morning. It doesn't make me feel good to know that death and destruction has entered America. And most of us are not prepared for what God is bringing down. You can pray for America, that's good. But let me tell you something. America is almost past praying for. And if the government of America under President Obama does not repent, you're living in a house that soon will be no more. I want to talk to you. I have members of the Japanese people, the Korean people, Hispanic people, African people here today. There's no part of our planet that's not being touched by the wrath of God. You don't have no power today to fight what God is bringing down. As prepared as the Japanese are, as technologically proficient as they are, they had no answer for that earthquake. They had no answer for the tsunami. No, they don't. And more is on the way. How could you preach Jesus and not understand the time and what's going on around you? Why are you afraid to stand up in your pulpit and tell your people that the judgment of God is on the world today and specifically on America? Why do you preach a milquetoast gospel when judgment is coming down all around you and you call yourself the pastors of Jesus Christ? Judgment don't mean nothing to you. You can't warn your people of the disasters that are coming and prepare them to go through it? What's wrong with you? What kind of preachers are we? A prosperity gospel? When God is curtailing the wealth of America and the wealth of the world, and soon the dollar will be worth nothing, but you don't want to prepare your people for the times that are at hand because you want friendship? Son of man, I have made you a watchman. That's your job. You can't sleep. Your people are dying in the street, dying in the church, dying in the world, and you sleep? A watchman stays up at night. A watchman is to look out for the sheep. How could Jesus tell you, I send you forth as sheep among wolves, and the shepherd is asleep and the wolves are prowling? Yes, I am saying it. Because I love you. I'm not holier than thou. I'm your brother, a fellow sufferer with you. But I know what I know from God. And it's not good coming to America. I want to close with these things. Some of you are such magnificent preachers. You know, when you preach, the shouts come up from the congregation. Sometimes the women just scream and throw up their hands, and the men. No, I'm not making any mockery. There's an awful lot of pain in the people, in the church, in the mosque, in the synagogue, in the street. You know, the way you teach, you help people. Without the church, we would never have made it. That's a fact. Without the songs of the church, the spirit of the church, the good preaching of the church, we couldn't have gotten through slavery. But now the church got to rise above where you are to be what Christ wants you to be. He wants you to transform human life and make a people fit for his kingdom, not fit to come to church. Listen. How many women in this audience, you don't have to raise your hand, have been abused in their childhood along the way by a father, by an uncle, by a cousin, by a friend of the family that was trusted, that came into the house and abused a young girl? How many brothers have been abused by other men, members of the family? How many of us suffer from things that have been done to us, and we hide it way back in the recesses of our mind, and we function, but that which has happened to us is an impediment to real flowering and growth and development. So we're embittered on the inside, but we praise God from the outside, but we're not healed. People raped, people abused don't get healed just by saying abracadabra. We got to know how to reach into their minds and bring out the demon that is hiding there that keeps them from being the child of God that they're born to be. But if you don't have the science of how to do that, then they come to church sick and they go away sick. They're in pain. And you have the power to relieve that pain. I recently called my brother Brother Alfred Johnson. Would you stand, please? I met him years ago. Reverend Alfred Johnson. He wasn't a reverend when I met him. He was a brother in the audience that heard the minister and loved the minister's teaching and tried to become a Muslim. But those in leadership were so ugly, so full of their authority. And he was such a man, he wasn't going to take that stuff. So he said, man, I like the minister, but I ain't going in there. So he left, and he found the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard in Scientology. And I met him years later, and we talked. We've always had a cordial relationship. But I knew something about Mr. Hubbard a long, long time ago when one of the man that was my first minister, when I saw him later, I wondered what happened, why he wasn't in the nation. He was a member of the Church of Scientology. And when I saw him, he said, you know, they have a process called auditing, where they ask the person to go back to painful moments in their lives. And they help them to bring it up and deal with it. And I remember him saying that everything that we have done in life is here. The Quran calls it the book of God, where all our deeds are written. This is your book. The book of Eli, I guess. It's right here. And everything we've ever done is here. And everything that's ever been done to us is here. It's on a time track. This is why, to me, see, this Jesus man, he is so bad, so good. Because he's not interested in the act, he's interested in the thought that produced the act. And he knows that in order to make a real child of God, you have to change the way people think. So you have to get into their minds. Now, many people think that when you learn this technology, you become a Scientologist. I ain't interested in no religion. I'm not trying to get no new religion. I got my religion. Reverend Alfred is a Christian. He got his religion. But, you know, God inspires people on your life journey that sometimes you meet them, they got a different name for their teaching. But when you go under, you discern the spirit, you say, oh, this is something good. And as a Christian, you have to be discerning of the spirit. Now, listen. I'm telling a story, but I want to bring somebody before you in a minute. Can I have a few more minutes? Look, I was talking with a sister one day, and she mentioned one of my ministers. And she said, you know, he was abused when he was young. I didn't say a word. But when she said that, I brought him up in my mind and I looked at him. Some of us are very authoritative because we're trying to be men because somebody did something to us. And in order to be men, when you're in a position of authority, you use it in a negative way to beat people down rather than help people up. You know people like that in the church. You raise them up and give them authority, and the next thing you know, they're hurting and harming people because they don't know how to serve. Their egos are so destroyed by the things that have happened to them in their lives. Even though they preach the word, they're sick inside. And they need a healing. So when she said that, I looked at my brother And I hope that I'm not being out of place when I say this. I had a wonderful helper in Brother Khalid Muhammad. I met him as a student at Dillard University in Louisiana. He had a big medallion of Brother Malcolm on his chest. Oh, God. And he came to the nation. Such a beautiful person inside. When he saw his brother in a bad shape, Khalid would go and sit down on the curb with him and talk to him and pick him up and bring him to the mosque and put him in the shower and get some clothes and put it on him. That's the kind of heart he had. But something was disturbing him. He didn't have the best relationship with his mother. He was in foster homes, and only God knows what happens to our children when they're in these places. And so he always felt that he had to be more macho than anybody else. And I'm trying to civilize him and tell him how you can be a statesman, but you want to fight all the time and, you know, show off this kind of power. And I didn't realize that my brother was affected by some abuse. I grew up under Brother Malcolm. He was my mentor. I'm here because of him. He died that I might live. He was the first man, real man in my life. He had a problem with women. I never hit my wife until I became a Muslim. Because under Brother Malcolm, he wanted me to be a man, and to be a man meaning you had to take charge of your house. And so I was trying to take charge and treat my wife like a soldier. And she was pregnant with my daughter, Maria. And, you know, gave me a little back talk. And I hit her. And she hit me back. I ain't never raised my hand again. Wait a minute now, I'm about to say something. Malcolm had a problem with women. And if you read his autobiography and you read the latest book by Manning Marable, he never had a good relationship with his own mother. How many of us in places of authority don't know how to love because we didn't have a good relationship with our mother? I'm talking to you. See, if you don't have a good relationship with your mother, you don't know how to love, because nurturing is what a mother does, and she does it out of love. And when you don't have that kind of relationship, you grow up not knowing how to love. Listen to me good now, because if you're going to be a true Christian, the love of God has to be at the root of your words, the root of your actions. But when you don't know your mother and don't love your mother, you can't love nobody else. So nature makes you want a woman, but without love, you don't know what to do with a woman after you get her. Look, we're sick people now. I'm talking about healing. I'm not talking about preaching. I'm talking about healing. Because if the preacher is not healed, you cannot heal the community. If the preacher is sick, the people are sick like the preacher. If the preacher is revived, he can revive his community. I have to say it. I am saying it. I'm almost there. Listen, pastors, when I saw that and I looked at the nation of Islam is like a military line structure, you know. And people in the military, they want to give orders. But they want to give them, you know, like they're the master. And the person taking orders is like a slave. So I got up that morning, I said, I'm calling Reverend Alfretti. And when I called him, I said, brother, I want to talk to you because I realize there's sickness inside the nation, as there's sickness inside the church, sickness inside the mosque, sickness inside of us that has to be reached so that the demons, see, Jesus, this is why Savior's Day, though you were there, see, Jesus was exorcising demons out of the people. Now, do you have a demon? Do we have some demons up in here? Are there demons in the church? Hell yeah, there are demons in the church. There are demons in the mosque, demons in the synagogue, demons in government, demons everywhere. People have to be exorcised of their demons in order for peace and justice and freedom and liberty to become a reality. So I called my brother, he came, and I said, I want you to help me with some of my helpers. I want you to talk about this thing called auditing. And he did, and I know those who are with me and follow me, L. Ron Hubbard is a white man. And did I say something wrong? And some of them think I'm a racist, you know. I don't care nothing about the color of your skin. God reaches who he will, regardless of your color, your race, your ethnicity. So I saw something in this man's technology. So I lured some of those close ones to me out to California, and I wanted to sit back and watch and see what they thought. And I wouldn't ask them to do something that I wouldn't do first. I'm not going to ask you to try something if I don't try it. So I sat down and allowed myself to be audited. Audit means to listen. We talk too much and listen too little, you know. Most of us who make our money by talking, and we're about to lose it by talking too much. So I just began to get quiet and listen. And they listened to me, and I studied, but I saw real deep into what they were saying. One thing about men and women of God, you hear something, but if God grants you deep insight into what you're hearing, you can take a thing and do more with it than the people that gave it to you. Some of the followers, you know, why are you going with these white people? I said, have you been to the hospital lately? What kind of doctor worked on you? Did you care about his color? Did you get an MRI lately or CAT scan? Did you ask, did a white man make this? A white man made it, I ain't using it. You don't act stupid like that, do you? If you go to Harvard, do you go there to ask, is your professor Jewish or Buddhist? You go there to get a discipline and come back and use it for the good of yourself and your family and your people. Prophet Muhammad said, Seek knowledge, even if you have to go to far off China. He didn't say go to China and come back Chinese. He said go to China, get the knowledge, and bring it back and use it. The Bible says study the ant and become wise. Now you ain't crawling around trying to be an ant, but there's wisdom in the ant. Take it and use it. So, I want first my sister, brother, her husband was out there in California. Would you stand, brother Oliver? Come on up here a minute. But I want your wife to come with you. I'm gonna let the wife speak first. As-salamu alaykum. I wanted to invite them to this meeting because I wanted you to hear something. Now, this is the brother who's over all the men in Georgia and the southern region. And he was one of the first that we sent out to learn some of this technology. He was out in California. His wife was back in Georgia. I'd like his wife just to tell you some of the conversations she had with him while he was out there. Would you share that with them, please? Let's hear from him. Go ahead. Sister Allison.
A.C.L.C. My name is Sister Deidre Muhammad, and my husband was sent, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, and my husband is one of those strong soldier men as well. But after about a week of being in California under the training, I would get off the phone and I would be like, was that him? Because his conversations began to change drastically in just a week. He became someone who was so loving and understanding, and someone who listened as opposed to just commanded. And I decided that I wanted to have some of the peace that he was experiencing. One of my daughters got in some kind of not so happy involvement at school before I took her out. And she came home and she said, I'm gonna get in trouble. And I said, well, when he calls, you're gonna have to tell him. And when he called and she spoke with him, she got off the phone and she said, that was not my father. She said, who was that man? I thought that I was gonna have a whole totally different conversation. So I began then to say, you know, I think I need to do this as well. I want them to respond to me like that. And so I embarked upon this study as well, and I became following the instructions of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because we hear and obey in our house. And I decided, you know, with the encouragement, to become an auditor as well, and I did. And we encouraged 2 of our 4 children to do the same, and they did. And yes, sir, praise be to Allah. And like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, you know, when you're auditing, you have to listen. And then you have to be able to trust the person who's auditing you, because you're going to be saying some things that you're not really aware of in a sense, but you are aware of. They've taken place, but you've buried them so deep. And since February, my daughter, who is our oldest daughter, is an auditor, but she is my auditor. And she is my firstborn. And she has relieved so much from me, so much pain. Not only one, and I'll just share with you, not only one rape, but several rapes that I have experienced, that my daughter has taken the pain and relieved it and erased it from me. All praises be to Allah. I was honored, and I thank Allah to have chosen me to be their mom. But to give someone life, for her to give me life again, it's beyond words. She doesn't even realize the gift that she gives me after session. I look at her and I'm just like, wow. To be honored to relieve this of me from my baby. It's beyond words. And I thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for instructing us to do this. And I'm humbled to hear and obey. This technology works. If you try it, you will be as convicted as I am about this, because it is a healing that you cannot buy at the store. Thank you so very much. A.C.L.C.
Thank you. Bring your daughters. The daughters, would you please come up? Now, I brought them in from Atlanta, Georgia, because I wanted them to share this experience. But this is going on all over the nation. And Brother Oliver, his wife spoke so beautifully when I heard her at her graduation. And her husband, when he learned this, he went back to Georgia immediately and began using this technology to heal members of his family. Is that correct, brother? Would you want to have a word to say, or would you?
Yes, sir.
Please, just hear from the commander.
A.C.L.C. I first of all like to thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the opportunity to learn this. It has been a tremendous, tremendous help for our family and a few of our extended family members. Just quickly, during the time I was there in the training, one of my brothers was suffering from pancreatic cancer. And so he was in the hospital. We had an opportunity to go and see him with the touch assist and other things that were given to us from the members of the church, whereby we were able to bring him out of the ICU back into the floor. And he really had a miraculous type of recovery. It was temporary because simply he started to feel good. And then he started to do other things that didn't lend to his complete recovery, and he sort of relapsed back, and unfortunately, he passed. We were able, and this is the part here that we buried him on a Monday. And Monday I was there, and we buried him. I came back home Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I got a call from my nephew who had told me that my mother had passed. And my mother was so saddened, by this occasion of losing a child. My mother was she loved her children. But what happened for me was I was able to get out of it. But immediately, my wife heard the news, and it really struck her. She started to cry. My children all started to cry. My whole house just erupted with, this grief. They hadn't gotten over my brother. Now here comes this with my mother. So immediately I gathered myself, went upstairs, set up 2 chairs. I sat down with my son. I audited my son. I audited my next daughter. I audited my next daughter. And my next daughter, and I audited my wife. All of them in a row, we got all of that pain out. Within an hour and a half, my children were downstairs singing songs, playing Xbox. Now, they've never returned to that moment of sadness about their grandmother. It's just a pleasant memory. So I tell you, you know, some of us are walking around with deaths of our children, deaths of loved ones, and other things that are really holding us back from the life force that you had at one time. One time we were very spry, we walked very fast, we thought quick. But as more and more things happen to us, we slump down. We know people that have losses, and we look at them, we say, since they lost their child, man, they never been the same. But there's no reason for them not to be the same. With this right here, anything that has ever happened to you in your life that has caused any type of discomfort or pain can be removed if you would sit down and do this. This is what I offered. I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is absolutely correct, and this is good for everyone in this room today. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. May I ask a question? Yes, sir. I want to ask them a question. Now, these are Muslim followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under my leadership. Has anything that you have learned made you less a Muslim, or has it helped you to become a better Muslim?
Way better, sir. Yes, sir.
Would you stand, Reverend Alfredi, and come up, please? Reverend Alfredi is a Baptist preacher. Hello, somebody. Now, I want to ask him. He's a Baptist minister, but he is high in the movement or church of Scientology. And I asked him, you know, in front of you, has anything that you've learned taken you away from Jesus or made you closer to Jesus?
It made me closer to Jesus, to run towards Jesus. It made Jesus real to me. Nothing but the truth.
Now, why did I bring them here? Because I want, if you trust me, I will never knowingly mislead any human being. But I want to share this with you. And I want the leaders first, just to see it. Maybe we'll come back in a week or two, and I'll share with you or let you see a video of how this is done. And when you see it, just look at it, think about it, and then look inside yourself and your church. Because there are people in your church, if they get this technology, they can turn right around in the church and begin helping to relieve members of the church of some of their grief and sorrow over death and things that happen in life as a natural consequence of living. So now that I've said that, I hope that we can arrange for you to see this. And if you will experience it, we had the largest auditing session of over 2,000 people. And we took a whole hotel, ballroom, several of them, and to see people being relieved. One child was 8 years old, and he had this technology, and he was talking to a woman 86 and bringing out her burdens and helping her to deal with it. This is a baby now. Some had an experience that they went back into their mother's womb and could feel the pain of what they were going through, and they understood what the mother went through. I mean, this is, you don't realize how powerful your mind is. You are made in the image of God. I mean, Think about that. And this brain of yours has the power to create, but it must be free of all these demons and impediments that bind us to pain and forbid us true pleasure. May I close this now? America, as we speak. Thank you. Thank you. Listen. Let me close with this. Dear pastors, America, as we speak, is under divine judgment. I have told you what was coming, and I could hardly get it out of my mouth before God answered. What I want you to know is that America is the modern Babylon. And every filth and indecent thing is going on inside America. She's a golden chalice on the outside, but filth and abomination of every kind is going on the inside. Do you think that America can continue to do the things that she does and escape the judgment of God? As thou hast done, what does the book say? So shall it be done unto you. There will never be a foreign power to deal with America. God himself is dealing with America as we speak. I want to read something from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we can go home. Elijah Muhammad, in the book Fall of America, writes that America would be under 4 great judgments: rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. These are natural disasters which will bring about the real fall of this Babylon. And if you read the Revelation, Babylon is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and a cage for every hateful and unclean bird and a place of unclean spirit. This is what's going on in America. Now look, he says, to be plagued with too much rain will destroy property and lives. It swells the rivers and creeks. Too much rain floods cities and towns. Large bodies of water at the ocean shorelines will be made to swell with unusually high waves, dumping billions of tons of water over the now seashore line. He wrote this 30-some years ago. Wow. Rain destroys property and kills cattle by drowning them in lowlands. Rain destroys the hiding place of vicious beasts and reptiles, bringing them out fighting in small towns, in people's homes and farms. Rain weakens and destroys railroads, truck line beds, and bridges. Rain undermines foundations of all types of building. Rain makes the atmosphere too heavy with moisture, causing sickness. Wind with rain can bring destruction to towns and cities, bringing various germs, causing sickness to the people. It produces unclean water by the swelling of streams and destroying reservoirs of pure drinking water used for the health of the people. Rain is a destructive army within itself. Hailstones are also a property and life destroyer. And what we've seen, 20 inches of rain falling in locations. Now the snow came down. The Bible says God snowed up treasure in the book of Job in the north for the day of battle. Snow came down this winter. Now rain. So as the snow melts and the rains come down, then the flood starts. This is happening. And this is only the beginning. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And many of you that are from Mississippi, they are now flooding small towns to save big towns. But even the big towns won't be spared. And as I said in my press conference, it's going to happen, but it'll be all of us catching it. In Alabama, when the tornado went through, my barber's grandson, when he called him, he was standing crying because every house around him had been destroyed. And they were bringing bodies of his neighbors out, and he was the only one left with a house alive. See, God is no respecter of persons. The judgment is in America as we speak, and it's going to get worse and worse until we bow down, until we surrender. Unless we repent, it's going to get worse and worse, and it will strike our houses. Yes. So, dear pastors, we've got to prepare our people for disasters. We went to Cuba and learned how Cuba deals with disasters. We brought the knowledge back. We want to share that because if you don't know how to put something aside in your house, because when that disaster comes, you won't be able to get out of your house to go to the store. There's nothing left in the store. What do you have at home? How can you keep yourself going for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, a month, for 2 months if you can't get out? You got to have something stored in your house. You got to know how to can, how to preserve. You got to have health. I mean, look, we are at war now for survival. So watchmen, watch as well as pray. Go back to your pulpits and preach an unadulterated gospel of Jesus Christ. Whatever God is against, don't act like we're too holy, but you got to bring your people up from fornication, from adultery, from drugs, from these sins. We have to begin to understand that righteousness is the only thing that will sustain us in this hour. Thank you for allowing me this privilege. Thank you for listening to me. And remember that when the death angel came, it passed over all the houses that had a mark on their gateposts in the blood of who? The Lamb. So that's the life of Jesus Christ. If you live that life, then the death angel may pass over our house. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you.